Hey everybody, welcome to my video today for the Lauren bag. This is our monthly sew along for the Marathon Society. This month we have chosen the Lauren bag from Mormino, and as Lauren says right on the cover, it's a quick and simple tote that can be made in a flash. So I'm so excited to get making this pattern today, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Lauren Mormino and just say thank you so much for allowing us to use your pattern in today's tutorial. I am super excited to make this bag, so let's go ahead and get started. First things first, let's go over the materials that we're going to be using today and all of the pattern pieces that we will need to make this tote. So I am using this Taylor Swift Eras Tour vinyl. This is from Wonderground Fabrics. So I have that for my exterior. I have a water resistant canvas. This is from Mormino, and this is for my lining. And as you will notice, the pattern, the pieces are a little different. This one has a little bit more on the bottom, so just pay attention to that when you're cutting your pattern pieces out. I'm using this black glossy vinyl, which is my absolute favorite. This is from Mormino. This is the base piece, and then I do have two lengths of the same vinyl cut. These are going to be my straps, so I have two of those. I'm going to be using these strap connectors, so that's a little different than what the pattern calls for, but I'll show how we install these, and then the straps will be attached here, and I just think that'll give it a really neat, classy look. Then I also have two cuts for my zipper tab ends. That's for the main top zipper. These are, I'm probably going to be cutting these down because I'm using vinyl. I don't need all that thickness to do the zipper end, so I'll be showing how I cut that down. And then you have two zippers, and I am using the piano keys from the Eras Tour collection from Mormino. So that's all the material that we'll need. Oh, I will say that if you're going to add a pocket, I also cut out two sets of these. If you're going to add a zipper pocket, which is what this shorter zipper will be for, you'll need two pieces of the pattern cut out for the zipper pocket. And if you want to add a slip pocket, you will need two more pieces, same exact size. So if you're only doing one, just cut two. If you want to add two pockets, cut four. Okay, so that's all the materials that we're going to need. Let's get going. Okay, the first thing I'm going to work on is I'm going to attach this hardware to the side of the bag. Now there is a measurement provided in the pattern for how far down and how far in you want to measure where you attach your strap anchors. I increased this distance here because this is a little different than what the pattern has, what the instructions are. So I wanted to give a little bit more distance up here at the top. So I moved mine down by 1/2 inch, and that's where I measured for my, I used this little bracket here, and I measured the cut marks. So to install these, what we need to do is we just need to use your seam ripper. You're going to poke a hole and just slide it down to the other end of that line opening. And I'm going to do that for both. Okay. Now we're going to take one of the brackets. I'm going to slide it in just like that, flipping it over to the back side. I'm going to take this little bracket here, slide it over the top, and then push the prongs towards the center. Okay, just like that. So that is that is how quick and easy it is to install this type of bag hardware. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and then I'm going to repeat the whole process to install the strap handles, the strap anchors I should say, onto the other side. One side note here, you might want to add a piece of duct tape to the back side here. Just add a little piece over here, and that's going to help protect wear and tear against your lining fabric. Okay, and there is your hardware with the not double-sided tape, duct tape to the back. There is your hardware attached to the exterior of your bag. Okay, the next thing we're going to be working on is our strap handles. So I am using lengths of vinyl here for my strap handles. This is the same vinyl that is the vinyl that I'm using for the base of the bag. So that is how that ties in. And what I've done is I've already drawn a line. I don't know if you can see it, it's pretty faint, but I've drawn a line straight down the center of the bag. And I'm placing this double-sided tape right on the center of that line. Okay, now I'm going to remove the paper backing. And I'm going to fold each long end in to where that line is. And I'm just going to press it in place. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to do the same side, bringing this side into the center, but I'm leaving a slight gap here. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but I am leaving a slight gap so that the pieces are not butted up exactly next to each other. And that's just going to help to make it a little easier for the next step if I have that little bit of extra room there. Okay, so now that your long edges are to the center, now you're going to fold it in half again. And again, you don't have to do this. You could butt it right up next to that line. But I find if I leave that little bit of a gap, then when I fold it in half again, it just folds a little easier and a little nicer. And it makes this part a little easier. Okay, so that's what one looks like all clipped. I'm going to repeat the same process to make or to prep the other handle. Okay, I will say that if you are using this method and you're leaving that tiny bit of a gap and the hardware that you're using does not have any room for any forgiveness for measurements, you know what I'm saying? If your hardware is pretty tight, you might want to just trim maybe 1/8 of an inch off of the width of your handle before you do that. Mine will be fine because of the shape of my hardware. The strap won't have any problem fitting. But if you had hardware that was a lot more particular about sizing, I would just do that because it does add the tiniest amount to the width because you're not going all the way to the center there. So just something to keep in mind if you're using this method. Okay, now that both straps are prepped, Now we need to take it to the sewing machine. We're going to top stitch around each side of the strap. We're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch around all 4 sides. All right, here are these beautiful straps stitched all the way around each of the ends. And now that we have these done, we can set these to the side for now. All right, let's move on to creating our lining pockets, our lining panels. So with one of our lining panels, I'm using the one with the extra here at the bottom. It doesn't really matter which one you put this on because it's all the same. I mean, once you put it together, it won't matter. So what we're going to do first for our main lining piece, we're going to fold it in half to find the center. Then we're going to take one of our lining pockets, fold that in half also to make the center, to find the center, and then we're going to lay it right side down on top of the pocket. I'm sorry, on top of the lining. We're going to lay the pocket piece on top of the lining piece. We're going to measure 2 inches down, and that's pretty much exactly where mine is, right? Nope, that was 1.5. 2 inches down. Okay, and then centered. And then I've already measured, there is measurements in the pattern for what size this box should be. I've already measured that out and marked it. So now I'm going to just take it over to the machine and I'm going to stitch around the outside, like right on the lines, just stitching this box so we can create our zipper pocket. All right, once you get that stitched, that box stitched on, now what we need to do is cut a line down the center. So you can always draw this line on if you want. I usually just use my rotary cutter and wing it. Okay, so once you get that line cut, we're stopping about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch from the end line here. So what we have is this slit down the center. Now I'm going to, right where that line stopped, I'm going to stitch up into the corner and get as close as I can to those stitches without cutting through my stitch line. So I'm just cutting a little V out on a diagonal right up to the corner. And the same on this side. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to, I like to, when I'm working with waterproof canvas or water resistant canvas like I am here, it does kind of hold a crease really nicely. So I usually like to just finger press mine first before I push it through. So we're pushing the pocket panel through the hole in the lining panel, and this is going to create our zipper box for our zipper pocket. All right, and then you just want to kind of pull it straight. If you have puckering, a little bit of puckering is no big deal because it will be, you won't see that in the end result. If you have a very large amount of puckering or it just looks bad, it's probably because you did not snip close enough into that corner. So just go ahead, turn this pocket back through the hole, try to snip a little bit closer, and then turn it back through and see how that does. I'm also going to take mine to the iron, give it a little press. I think that's going to also help to hold it in place, and then we'll be ready to install our zipper. Okay, so there is the opening pressed out. I have a little bit of puckering here, but I'm not worried about it. I think it'll disappear once I get the zipper stitched on. Now what you want to do is grab your shorter length of zipper, and because I'm using this piano zipper tape, obviously mine is going to be going this way. I have my zipper pull oriented to the left. I usually like mine to open and close to the left, but if you have yours going the other way, it's no big deal. You can have it open and close to the right, or you can switch it around. Just make sure if you're using zipper tape that is directional like this, that you don't put it in upside down, because then your keyboard will be upside down. Okay, so what we want to do now is just add a little bit of double-sided tape. I'm just going to add a length here along each long edge of the zipper tape. And then removing the paper backing. What we need to do is we need to center the zipper over the opening for the pocket. So I try to keep my zipper pull in the center if I can. And then usually just eyeballing it, I'll flip it back to see that I have about the same amount on both sides. So that's good, that's what I want. And then bringing the opening up and over the zipper tape. Bring your pull to the inside. And then just center it. Center the zipper in your opening. Make sure that pull stays out. There we go. So that's how that's looking. Now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm just going to stitch right along the edge here, maybe 1/8 of an inch from the edge, all the way around this opening. And that will attach our zipper to our panel. All right, so now that that is installed, that's how that looks. We're going to flip it over and we're going to grab our other pocket lining piece. So with it, now this one is kind of hard to tell because it is waterproof or water resistant canvas, so both sides look the same. I will give one tip for how you can tell easily what is the right side and what is the wrong side of this material. So if you scratch it with your finger and it doesn't leave a mark, that is the right side. If you scratch it with your nail and on the wrong side, I don't know if you can see this, but it does leave a slight mark. It's probably really hard to see on this light fabric here, but that's how you know that it's the wrong side. So if you ever are wondering, go ahead and give it the scratch test. All right, so once I lay it down right sides together, so both pocket pieces are right sides together, I'm going to clip in place along the sides and along the top. And then we are going to sew these two pocket panels together along the sides and along the top. We are not going to sew along the bottom. We're leaving that open as that's how we're going to be finishing this bag. We are not going to be turning it through the pocket opening, but we are going to be finishing it this way. And it's a real neat way to turn your bag through and finish it without having to try to pull your whole bag through the pocket. So it's a double flip method, and I'll show you that when we get there. So once you get that done here, we're going to just stitch along these 3 edges. We also want to fold up this bottom by about 1/2 of an inch. So you can do this after you stitch, or I a lot of times prefer to do it before because it keeps it, it holds it a little better. Sometimes if you fold it up later, it will want to unfold on you. So doing it this way and you have it stitched in to that side seam, it's just going to make it a little bit easier for you there. So I'm just going to clip this here just to hold it, obviously not sewing on it, but just to hold it. And then again, we're just stitching along the 2 sides and the top and leaving this bottom open. All right, so there is how that looks. Your zipper pocket is finished for now. On the back side, stitched along the 3 sides. This here at the bottom is left open. You can trim off if you want to. You can trim off this zipper overhang. I'm just going to leave mine. It just helps it. I've already singed the ends. It's not going, you're not going to see it on the inside, and so I am perfectly happy with it being hanging over just a little bit. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is open up that zipper, and then we can set this one to the side, and let's grab our other lining piece. All right. So this is right side up here. And then I'm going to grab my other pocket pieces. So I am going to do a slip pocket on this side, but I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to do basically a welt slip pocket. So it's going to be the same process as the zipper, but we're not adding a zipper. And it's going to make it kind of more of a hidden slip pocket. Now this technique is not written into the instructions, so you won't find it in the pattern instructions anywhere. But I thought that would be a neat way to do this pocket a little bit differently. So basically the first step is exactly the same. We're going to draw the line, make the little snips, you know, cut down the middle, cut into the corners, turn it through, and then we're going to attach the other side. So and I want to draw this box a little larger than the other one. So I'm going to make it, what is that, 8 inches? Yep, 8 inches wide. And a 1/2 inch tall. Just going to close off these boxes here. Okay. And then again, centering it. I'll make sure that it is the same distance down. I think that was 2 inches, what the pattern calls for, and that is pretty darn close. Okay, so I will go ahead, take it over to the machine. I'll stitch this box around, cut the marks, and turn it through, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, I did want to say before I turn this through, I did change it up a little bit. So instead of making the box a 1/2 inch tall, it's more like 3/8 inch. I just basically did 2 stitches down for my sewing machine. I'm using a Sailrite Fabricator, which is an industrial machine, and my stitch length is at 4. And so really, I just need this little slit here to create the opening. I don't need it to be a large hole like it is for the zipper pocket, because we're just slipping things in here. We don't have to add a zipper or anything like that. So I shrunk the size of the opening just a little bit. Okay, there's how that is looking. As you can see, I do have a bit of puckering right here at this side. So I'm going to turn that back through, try to snip a little bit closer. And then once I get it laying nice and flat, I'm going to give it a nice press. And then what we need to do is just top stitch around this opening. Just top stitch around. You don't have to attach a zipper to the back or anything, because we want that pocket open. So we're just going to top stitch right along that opening. All right, there is how that opening looks. Top stitched here from the back. It's the same, just top stitched around that opening. Now we're going to take our other lining pocket piece, and just like we did on the other one, we're going to lay it right sides together. But the difference with this one is we are going to sew all the way around all 4 sides. So we are closing off this pocket. And then that's what's going to create our slip pocket on the other side. So let me get this clipped and I'll show you how it looks. Okay, just make sure everything's clipped together. Yep, okay. So from the other side, now here's how it looks from this side. You can't see anything because it's all hidden. So it's a little bit more of a hidden slip pocket, whereas you could do a traditional version where you sew the pieces together, turn them inside out, lay them down, and then stitch around the 3 sides. This is just another way to do the same thing and have it hidden there on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now take it to the machine, flip these sides back, stitch all the way around just on the pocket to close that off. And then I think I'm going to flip my pocket up and out of the way and add a little logo badge right here on this lining panel. Okay, so that's how that's looking there. I just wanted to show, I just added this very simple iron-on logo label, and then I stitched around the edges. And then this is our slip pocket. So let's see, what can I put in there? A couple pens. So it's a great size. It's a great size and just a different way to do it. Like I said, this is not written into the pattern, but I wanted to show just a little different way to do something. The last thing that I wanted to show you is that I increased the seam allowance here on the back. So when I was sewing it, I wanted to get as close as I could. I'll just show you it this way. When I flipped it back, I wanted to get as close as I could to this edge here so that you don't have a lot of room here at the top of your slip pocket. So basically it just sits just like that, and your pocket is towards the bottom and you don't have a lot of gap there. So because I did that, I am now just going to just trim off the extra. You don't have to do this part, but I'm just going to trim it back by a little bit. Probably about half there. Okay, so there is our other side. I really love how this pocket looks. I think it's really cute, and actually I might use this in some of my future patterns. So if you are a fan of my patterns, keep an eye out for this pocket because you probably are going to see it in a future pattern. Okay, the next thing we have to do is to prep our zipper for our main bag. So this is the zipper on the top of the bag. Now the pattern has 2 pattern pieces that what you would do if you were using a woven material, you would fold in half and then fold this in half and in half again like that. And so just like you did on the straps, so you're enclosing that raw edge there in the center. And then you would put it over your zipper end and sew it down. Because I'm using vinyl, and that would be way too thick, I'm just going to cut this down. And I'm going to use half because I'm just going to have the one raw edge. Now, if you don't like having the raw edge, you can obviously do it whichever way you want. Right? You can make that executive decision for yourself on how you want to attach your zipper ends. This is how I am attaching my zipper ends. So I'm just laying the zipper right up to that center fold there. I'm going to clip it in place. And then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew along this edge here, attaching these tabs to the end, and then we're going to cut off the ends, and then we can start to put this all together. Okay, once that is stitched on at each end, now I'm just going to trim off the edges so that it matches up with the side width of the zipper tape. I'm going to do that to both ends. All right. Okay, now we're ready to start putting this together. So we need to grab one of our main exterior panels, and we're going to lay that down right side up. And then the zipper tape, we are going to flip it over and attach it right side, so teeth side down. We're flipping the zipper tape over, and I'm going to use some double-sided tape here to help hold mine in place. I'm just attaching it to, actually I'm going to attach it to both ends, but we're only going to use the one side for right now. So I'll do this now so that when we go to put the other side together, this is already done. Okay, so taking off the paper, what we want to do is we want to flip the zipper tape over, and then we're going to center it. So you want it centered left to right, and I think that should leave, yes, it leaves about an inch on either side. So here I'm just pressing that zipper tape in place. Again, you don't have to do this. You could just use clips, but I am a huge fan of zipper tape, of double-sided tape, I should say. I should look to see if I could get stock in it. So what we're just going to do is now baste this in place. If you're using clips, I probably would baste it in place. Since I'm using the double-sided tape, I'm going to go ahead and skip that part because that double-sided tape basically does the same job as basting. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is grab one of our lining panels. I'm going to flip it over so they are right sides together, and we're going to match up this top edge. And here I'm going to clip in place all the way across. All right, and I am not too worried about the fact that it's slightly off, because I think when I stitch that this panel will be pushed a little bit, and that should match up exactly then. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to just stitch straight across, getting as close as we can, so about 1/4 of an inch I think, or as close as you can to the zipper teeth. If you have a zipper foot, you could use that to get up nice and close next to that zipper. I'm just going to stitch mine straight across at about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so once that is stitched all the way across, we're going to press both panels away from the zipper. So I'm just giving it a little press here with my hands, and then flipping the vinyl down, doing the same thing here. Okay, both of your panels should line up on this side. We're using the same, I'm going to add a clip here just for a second so I can make sure that my panels are both pressed away equally from the zipper teeth, the zipper tape. Okay, now once you get that done, you're going to flip it back and then only on the top, on the exterior, we're going to fold it down, and then we're going to top stitch right along this edge here. Again, only top stitching on the exterior, and then we're top stitching that seam allowance again towards the exterior. So your seam allowance is this way, your pocket is up, or your lining is up and out of the way, and we're just top stitching straight through that edge there. Okay, there we go. Top stitched only through the exterior. The seam allowance is pressed towards the exterior. Now we're going to flip the lining down. Just give it a nice press here. And I'm going to add a couple clips. This is totally not necessary, but I'm going to add a couple clips just to help keep the lining and the exterior for this side kind of together and out of the way, not causing me any problems for when I attach the other side. Okay, so that's how that looks so far. I'm loving this. It's so cute. All right, so now we need to repeat those same steps to attach the other exterior and other lining piece. Okay, once you get that stitched together, your linings and your exterior pressed away from the zipper, now what we need to do is attach the base. So grabbing our base, and it doesn't matter which side we start with, we're just going to flip it down, and right where this little notch is, your base should match up perfectly with that little notch. We're going to clip it in place. So we're only clipping the main exterior side and your lining base, or your exterior base. So your main exterior side and your exterior base, we're clipping together. Like I said, it should match up perfectly with that little notch right there. Now we're going to sew straight across according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern instructions. And then we're going to flip this side back and top stitch right along that folded edge. Okay, now that that side is attached, flipped down and then top stitched along the base here, what we need to do is the exact same thing to attach the other side. Now this side is going to be harder to top stitch for sure, because just the fact that it's already got something attached to the other side is going to make it a little trickier. So make sure your zipper is opened, and then that will give us a little bit of room to access it through the zipper opening. Okay, so I'm going to stitch straight across, and then to press it open, since obviously this is going to be in the way, we will be able to open it this way, get our needle, our machine, get our needle in there, and then stitch it through this opening here through the zipper lining. So it's going to be a little awkward, but it'll be okay. We'll get it done. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back to show how we finish. Okay, so here is how this is looking. I got both sides attached and top stitched. Like I said, I opened it up through the zipper opening here, and then just fold it. You just, keep it down against your sewing machine, slide your foot over, and then you're able to maneuver this out of the way so that you can top stitch. Okay, so the next step we need to do is we need to attach the sides. So I'm pressing my, let's see here, let me grab a couple stronger clips. So on the side, I'm pressing this zipper end, the zipper tab that's on the end of the zipper. I'm pressing it towards the lining, and then I'm just going to put a clip there, a strong clip to hold it in place. I'm going to do the same thing to this one here. I'm going to move my zipper to the middle of the bag so it stays out of the way. Just matching up that side seam. Okay, let me flip this bad boy over. It's really large, so I apologize if it doesn't quite make it into the full camera view. But what we want to do is we just want to match up these side seams. And we're going to sew the exterior side seams together and the lining side seams together. We are not yet sewing the lining base together. We're going to sew these sides first, and then we're going to come back and box the corners right here for the exterior. And then the last thing we'll be doing is finishing off the lining base. And then I guess I should say the last thing. The last thing to finish the main part of the bag. Then the last thing we have to do is attach the handles. But that won't be too hard. All right, so we're clipping this in place all the way down, and then we are going to sew from edge to edge according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern instructions. Now, I would say start at the seam allowance in the pattern instructions here. Once you get to your lining, increase it by just a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so, and then continue down to the end. And that's just going to help your lining to make sure that it fits nice and snugly and it's not too big or too baggy on the inside. Okay, so we're going to do that to both sides of the bag, sewing straight down the sides, and then I'm going to take it over to the machine. I'll do that, and then I'll come back to show you the next step. All right, once your side seams are stitched, I am just going to trim back the seam allowance by about half, just to help to keep some of that bulk out of the inside of the bag. And do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so the next thing we have to do here is to finish off the bottom, the base. So we're going to just pull this open. You can butterfly open your side seam if you want, or just push it to the side. I'm going to add a couple clips here. And I'm going to clip the seam allowance again towards the base. And then we're going to sew straight across according to the seam allowance. So that's right next to where the stabilizer is here. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So again, just clipping it in place, clipping the seam allowance towards the base, and then sewing straight across on both sides, finishing off our exterior base. Okay, once we have the base sewn on, that's what it looks like. We're going to trim the seam allowance back to about 1/4 of an inch. So pretty close there to where our stitch line is. You might notice, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I did add a second row of stitching right next to my first row of stitching. And that is just to help to give it a little bit of strength there, and also to help to prevent the stitches from pulling from the exterior. If you've ever seen on the outside of bags where you can see the stitches pulling from the side, that helps to prevent that from happening. Okay, so now we have to turn this bag through. So I'm going to turn it through the large, once I can find it. There we go. I'm going to turn it through the large top opening. There we go. You want to make sure that you get your corners pressed out nice, right up where that zipper is. So make sure those are pressed out nice. Okay, so once we get that done, what we need to do now is we need to pull the base through our zipper pocket opening. So this is going to feel strange, but what you need to do is reach in from the lining. You're going to grab your base and pull it there we go. So I know this seems strange and awkward. However, it's a whole lot easier to do it this way to finish off your base than it would be to try to pull that entire bag through your tiny zipper pocket opening. So this is one way. It's like a double flip. So you pull it out, then push it through, and then you finish off your pocket lining. And it just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do here is we are matching up our long straight edges of our base, the base on one side, and then the straight edge on the other side. Okay, so that is leaving our side open, and then we're going to have to close that off just like we did on the exterior, where we pull this out like this. And since we have the seam over to the side, you won't have that seam visible in the bottom of your bag. It'll be off to one side, so that'll give you a really nice finish on the inside. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to take mine over to the sewing machine first. I will sew this across, and then I will come back to show you how we finish the sides off. Okay, that is sewn across. I'm going to trim back the seam allowance by about half. And again, for this one, I sewed it at the little bit larger seam allowance for the lining. So not what the exterior seam allowance is, but a little bit larger because, again, I want to make sure that it's not too baggy on the inside of my bag. Okay, so now to finish off your side, keep in mind that this now is your side seam, so your side corner, and you're going to just flatten it out just like that. So it can feel a little bit awkward because everything is tight and being pulled in different directions. Just go ahead and clip that in place. And then because this is your side seam, I'm going to fold the seam allowance towards the base. So that's just going to help that to lay a little bit flatter and a little bit nicer. I'm going to clip that in place there. So that's what it looks like from the other side. And then same over here on this side. Clipping it in place. And then folding the seam allowance in towards the base. All right, there we go. Okay, now we're going to sew along these two straight edges again at that little bit larger seam allowance to finish off our lining. Okay, now that those side seams are done, again, trimming back the seam allowance by about half, right along those edges. Okay, now we can push the base back through the pocket opening. The lining, I should say. It's pretty much the whole lining. We can push that back through. Okay, and then with your pocket, now we can pull the pocket out. And remember when we flipped this up, we had that little bit of about 1/2 inch seam allowance there. So I'm going to clip that in place all the way across. And then we're just going to sew along this bottom seam here. Right at about somewhere between 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch. I like to go 1/16 of an inch or as close to the edge of the fabric as I can while still catching both sides of the pocket opening. Okay, so we're going to stitch right along this bottom edge, like I said, at about 1/16 of an inch, and then push the pocket back in, and we'll see what our bag looks like. Okay, pocket is sewn. Let's stuff it back in. We're going to push those corners out inside the pocket there. close that. See how our lining is fitting, which I think it looks really good. We have that one seam off to the side. The other side does not have a seam, remember, because we had the longer base on the one side. There's my slip pocket on that side. Zipper pocket over here. Okay, that's what the exterior of the bag is looking like. Let me just zip that closed. Look how cute it looks with that piano zipper tape on the top. So cute. And then there's what our base looks like. You could add purse feet if you want. The pattern instructions do provide for adding purse feet. So now the last thing we need to do here before our bag is complete, is we need to attach our straps. So grabbing our straps, we are now going to take the strap end, feed it through the hardware, and you're going to flip it up. Now here you have the option to add a rivet or stitch. You can secure it in whatever way is your favorite, if you have a favorite. Okay, you do want to make sure that whatever you fold over on one strap, it's the same on all of the straps. So that way you don't have one strap that is longer than the other once you turn it through, or once you connect all your straps. Okay, so I think I'm doing about 1 1/4 inches here. Let me see. Yep, that's about 1 1/4 inch. And again, just making sure over here. Yep, 1 1/4. Okay, and then same for this side. A little bit less here. 1 1/4. Always better to measure 2 or 3 times, right? And then do it, make sure it's right before putting it together and then realizing, oh, I forgot to measure, and then you have a big mess on your hands. Okay, so a little bit less on this one. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm just using these clips to hold these in place. I am going to attach a rivet to my straps here, but another way is just to hold it up. Once you get the straps, you want to hold it up and make sure that they are the same. For instance, you don't want it to be like this because you know you measured something wrong. So just make sure your straps are laying at the same height. And then, like I said, I'm going to take mine over. I'm going to attach rivets here to secure my straps to the bag, and then I'll be back to show you the final result. Okay, straps are attached. I used rivets, like I said, to attach the strap ends, and our Lauren bag is done. This is so cute. I absolutely love how this turned out. So there's the base. Here are the 2 sides. And then again, on the inside, you've got the slip pocket on the one side, and then you've got the zippered pocket on the other. Our base fits great. There's so much room in there. I love this tote. I love this pattern. It's so cute and pretty quick to put together. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial for my Lauren bag. Again, this pattern is from Mormino, and I will link to it in the pattern description so that you can grab the pattern and make your own tote. Thank you so much for joining me today for my tutorial. Thank you for supporting all of the amazing makers in the Marathon Society and for joining in with our events every month. We appreciate your support, your views, your comments, your engagement. Probably more than you know. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to Lauren for this, again, allowing us to use her pattern for our tutorials for this month. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you go sew something fun. Something with keys on the top.